Good evening, girls and boys. Let me start the lecture entitled by Passive Voice. It is introduced by your lecture assistant to Prof. Istabrak for all English classes in College of Basic Education Al Mustansariya University. Let me start see what is the definition of passive voice. A passive voice is a type of a clause or sentence in which an action through verb or an object of a sentence is emphasized rather than its subject. Or we can say simply, the subject receives the action of the verb, the emphasis or focus is on the action, while the subject is not none or is less important. What is passive voice? Passive voice is a quality of a verb that describes when the subject of a sentence is acted upon the verb. For example, when I say the sheriff was shot, this is an example of the passive voice. The action is done to the subject. When the opposite is true, that is to say, the subject of the sentence is acting out the verb, it is said to be an active voice. As we can see in this example, I shot the sheriff, it is an active voice. This is an example of the active voice. The subject does the action. In other words, a verb, we can say, is said to be in the passive voice when its subject does not perform the action of the verb, but has the action of the verb performed on it. Let's have more example of the passive voice. Now, look at this example of the passive voice. We have the bridge was blown up by engineers. We consider the subject the bridge, the verb in the passive voice was blown up, and the actor it is by engineers. In fact, we can say that the subject is not doing the verb. In fact, the verb was done to the subject, as we can see. Also, we can have another example. The cows will be milked after tea. Here we have the subject is the cows, the verb in the passive voice will be milked, and the predicate of the sentence after tea. We can find that the subject is not doing the verb. In fact, the verb will be done to the subject. Let's have examples of verbs in the passive voice. Remember that if a verb is in the passive voice, its subject has the action of the verb done to it. Here are some more example sentences featuring passive voice. Of course, you can find them within red color or shaded, it doesn't matter at all. Let me have the first example. Everyone was startled by the power outage. A scream was heard coming from across the house. The candles were extinguished as we rushed to the scream. The crime was illuminated shortly by flashes of lightning. She had been murdered. A trap was devised to catch the killer. Lieutenant Lavender was caught by the brilliant detective educator Amiral. This is the last example that we have got, and I think that our lecture for today it is much more interesting. Thank you for your attentions.